and Faith with Heather Murdock.
Good morning and welcome to Love, Hope, and Faith. My name is Heather Murdock and I'm so blessed to be with you today. I absolutely love doing this show. I know I probably say that every single Wednesday, but I'm so honored to be a part of this TV ministry, to be leading this ministry and sharing with you how awesome Jesus is. I love Jesus so much, and what a blessing it is for me to be with you and just share through people's life stories, through my own story, how Jesus transforms lives. He is the one true hope. He is the deliverer. He is the restorer. And every week I get to share that through people's testimonies and how God is using people every day for His glory to share how awesome He is. And if you've never seen the show before, this show is all about wherever you are, wherever you've been, there's hope in Jesus. And if you want to check out, pardon me, other episodes of Love, Hope, and Faith, you can go to heathermurdock.com, and I post my spiritual walk there. It's like my blog. I also post the shows there, and also you can go to tspntv.com and check out the programming there, all the programming. And there's just many ways you can watch Love, Hope, and Faith, and do check that out and be blessed by some of the testimonies there. And tspntv.com is a great way to catch up on all the TSPN TV programming as well. So lately I've been reading in the book of Nehemiah. I don't know if you've read that book. It's an Old Testament book, and it's such a what an incredible story. Nehemiah is a man who is responsible for leading the rebuilding of the wall in Jerusalem. Check it out. It's a wonderful story, and I've been so encouraged by it. It's a story about how one man says yes to God, and when we say yes to God, He can restore our lives, and He wants to restore our lives. And Nehemiah is all about this man, Nehemiah, who prays. He's a godly man. He prays and fasts and just is broken over the deteriorating wall, the wall that's broken around the city of Jerusalem in the Old Testament. And he is called by God. God burdens his heart, and he's called by God to rebuild that wall. And he doesn't just run off half-cocked. He doesn't run off in his own strength. He first covers everything in prayer, and then he acts. And he knows that God has burdened his heart to take action, to rebuild. And that's what God calls us to do, to rebuild, to restore. And when we can step out in faith, it's amazing what God can do through us. What is God calling you to do? What is God calling you to step out in? Will you say yes to God? Will you allow Him to rebuild your life? Will you allow Him to rebuild that relationship maybe that needs rebuilding and restoration? I don't know what He's calling you to, but when you say yes to God, when you humble yourself before Him, He can do amazing things. He is the Creator, and He can do amazing things and create amazing things in and through you just by your willingness to trust Him and to step out in faith. So I encourage you today. Today I have a wonderful guest. It reminds me kind of the story of Nehemiah. I have a wonderful guest today. Her name is Mary Patton. Hi, Mary.
Hi.
Good to have you this morning.
It's good to be here.
And I should say you're a counselor, a drug abuse counselor. Mm-hmm. With a focus on eating disorders and what was the other one?
Codependency and families.
Good. Excellent. Yeah. And I kind of compared the story you're going to share today to Nehemiah because God has absolutely restored your life in many ways, mm-hmm. right?
Yes, He has.
And so you're going to share that, but you're also going to share today some tips on how someone can overcome or work through an eating disorder. Mm-hmm. Good. And the viewers know, I mean, it's been, I think, about a year and a half ago that I had another show that focused on eating disorders. Mm-hmm. And I shared with the viewers that I had struggled with bulimia for almost 18 years. Mm-hmm. And Jesus completely delivered me. And people say, how come, Lord, how come God doesn't do those miracles that He used to do in the Old Testament or in the Bible? Right. And I have to just say, I'm a walking miracle, I feel, because He's delivered me from that. And right. I know you have a story, mm-hmm. a similar story. So before we go and talk about that, though, I kind of like to know about you, who you are, kind of taking you back to your childhood. Mm-hmm. So how long have you been a believer?
Well, let's see. I actually accepted Christ when I was in first grade.
Okay.
I was very fortunate to grow up in a family where my dad was a pastor.
Okay.
However, he never did push church on us, but mm-hmm. I remember I was at a chapel in first grade, and they were telling about Jesus, and I guess He just really became real to me, and I really remember experiencing the Holy Spirit at that age.
In first grade, that's awesome.
Yeah. And I was like, I want Him in my heart too. I want Him, Lord of my life. And so I accepted him, and I remember walking out of that chapel and going on the playground and just feeling this joy and this light, just I think that has always been with me, even in the struggle, but it's always been there, and that's His Spirit and His hand that's been on my life. So,
yes. Amen. Pardon me. That's awesome. So you've been a believer for many years, and so I was going to ask you when Jesus became real for you, but it sounds like pretty early on you had a relationship with Him.
Yeah. Well, and I think when I kind of went through my struggle, it was when I really made my faith my own in college, when I actually stopped going to church for a couple months and kind of had to be like, throw away all my some of my distorted thinking that I had to live up to rules or religion, because I think along the way I got a little bit sidetracked. And so it was during that time that I kind of went away, where I just really poured out my heart and was really honest with God about where I was at. And I think really just grew an intimate relationship with Him that just continues to grow.
And that's the key, is intimacy.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what do you mind if I ask you, where do you think you got those distorted thoughts about having to be perfect and all that? How did that happen?
Well, I think, I was, like I said, I was blessed to be in a Christian home. I went to a Christian school till I was in 8th grade. And then I went to high school, and a public high school, so I started getting a lot of attention. I was cheerleader, I was homecoming princess, lead of the school play, just all those things, and just everything was just going good. And I still was involved in youth group, and at that time too, I was dating the water polo player and all that stuff. And I think it was around my senior year where a lot of my friends started kind of partying, making bad choices. I had a good friend who had an abortion, and another friend who was in the hospital and wanted to kill herself, and I was just like, why is this all happening? What is all this? I guess my bubble was being burst, kind of. And I think I started feeling that it was my fault, that I did something wrong, that I must have done something that caused all this, or not necessarily caused it, but it wasn't enough. I guess my belief or me wasn't, I made it about me, And so I started struggling. And again, my boyfriend broke up, and he stopped going to church. We broke up, and like I said, all this stuff was happening to my friends. And I got depressed, and I started feeling alone. And I think that depression, I just stopped eating, and I started just isolating myself. And I thought maybe there was something I could do to control the situation, that maybe I did something wrong, or just there was something I could change, that maybe someone would do something different. And those were the choices they made, and I really didn't have anything to do with it.
That's the beginnings of codependency.
Right.
When you feel like you're responsible for everything.
Right.
Yeah.
So that kind of goes along with it. And so it was interesting, because for a while I just had this thinking, maybe when I started losing weight, I was like, well, if I can maybe get a certain size, maybe, things will change.
Yes.
And it never did.
That's how I thought too.
It was never enough, and it was just like this lie for so long. And I remember I was still at church, and I was doing some ministry, and I felt kind of what was my breaking point was when I was like, if this is what it is to be a Christian, to do all these rules and this, and I can't do this anymore. I can't live up to it anymore. It was just,
the bar keeps getting higher and higher.
Right. Yeah. And I would feel like I had to climb this ladder, and then one day I would arrive, and it just wasn't.
It's interesting how the enemy can twist who Jesus is in our own mind.
Yeah.
And we, like you said, it's a perfect word, that distorted thinking. I like to share about, before I knew Jesus, I was looking at my life through like a broken windshield, and everything was distorted, you know. And then as I became healed through Jesus, that windshield now is starting to be no cracks in it. I'm starting to see clearly,
Right.
So yeah, it's a good analogy.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where freedom is, because it's like, oh, what I do doesn't have to. All I got to do is stay focused on the Lord and be who He created me to be. I don't have to try to fix or manage and manipulate. I guess what I realized, and I think even more recently, is a lot of it was a manipulation, in a sense that I thought if there was something I did, things would change. But Jesus says my yoke is easy, my burden is light. So I don't have to do anything to do it. He does it. It's his job.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. And I think that happens when we make ourselves the center of everything.
Yeah.
And that could be a pride in a weird way. You know,
yeah.
we think of ourselves as the center of everything. And when we can stop being the center and he's the center, it's such a relief. Like you said, it's freedom, you know?
Yeah.
He's the center of everything. Yeah. And I should share with the viewers how I met you, actually, because we're just getting to know each other. We're both in Celebrate Recovery, and I gave my testimony at Real Life Church down in Natomas, and I remember the ministry leader there said, "You guys will totally hit it off because she has also had an eating disorder," and so we had that connection instantly, you know. And so it's so cool how God uses our struggles in so many amazing ways. You're going to share more of that today, but just how connecting us now. You're here in the show, and you get to share today, so it's really awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I love having you here. So, okay, so you went through this time of feeling like you had to be perfect and strive, and so did that push you away from your faith?
I wouldn't say it pushed me away. I think it actually brought me closer in some ways because I was really exploring, like, just pouring out my heart to God. I think at first I was like, where are you when all this was happening? Just all these traumas happened my senior year. Where are you? You know, why is this happening? Really getting real with the Lord. I mean, I had some conversations. I was not too nice, but I was I was angry.
Wrestling with him, yeah.
And, you know, I think that's something that's been very liberating just through this whole process is that I get to be real with the Lord, and he can really handle. He's a big God, and that's where the healing is when we're true, because if I have to put a performance on for him, I mean, God forbid, I wouldn't be able to get the healing that he wants.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
Because he's the rock and he's our safety. So, what was the question again?
Did it push you away? Did the perfectionism?
Again, I think it didn't push me away. I think it did push me away from people, from relationships. I missed out on a lot of relationships with people and opportunities I think he wanted to bless me with. So that's where it did push me away.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because I didn't feel I was enough or worthy of having friends or hanging out with people. And again, I was too hiding because I had a secret, and I was so afraid to share.
Oh, I relate to that so much, Mary. That's exactly. I mean, I feel like you're just totally speaking for me as well. And I'm sure many other people out there watching the show who have struggled with an eating disorder can relate to that. You mistakenly think that you have to be perfect or you're not lovable. Yeah. And then you start isolating.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very lonely, you know, and
we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.
Faith, and I'm interviewing Mary Patton today, and you're a counselor, and we'll talk about that later on the show, but I wanted to continue with your story. You were sharing before we went to break that you began to isolate and kind of disconnect from relationships, so tell me more about that.
So I was lost. Again, I wasn't just so afraid to talk to people and get out, and I did actually have my family kind of confront me what was going on, and I did start seeing a therapist, a counselor, and it just kind of made a lot of things real. I had some traumatic things happen when I was young, why I kind of struggled with the identity and the beauty, and also, like I was just telling you, just being raised in the church, and just, again, that was another part of it, wanting to have it together. You know, it was very hard to be vulnerable and say, I didn't feel safe to say I was struggling.
Right, you felt like you had to be perfect.
Right.
You had to have the right image, you had to look like your family was perfect, all that.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think like talking to someone really just started helping in that process. I was definitely probably in denial the first year and a half of my counseling.
Yeah.
But that's what got me where I kept, along the journey.
And kept going to him, deeper with him, yeah.
Because I think I wasn't real with myself for so long, so I had to learn how to, be real with myself and be honest. And then I got, started doing some support groups, and just, I remember one time one of the support groups I went to, a woman just said, just kind of the destruction of some of the things I was doing to my body, and it actually really scared me that I really stopped.
So at this point, were you not eating?
Well, I started to eat, but I was, abusing laxatives.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, which is very common, goes along with
Right.
that. Yeah, I went through a period like that as well. And
Yeah.
it's so interesting because in my past is totally different from yours, being not raised in a Christian home at all.
Yeah.
But because there was so much chaos at home, my way of coping with that was to present this perfection or what I
Yeah.
thought was, or striving to be perfect
Right.
as a way to let everyone know I'm okay, everything's
Yeah.
okay, you know,
Yeah.
and so a different stimulus, but same result of that perfectionism, wearing that mask.
Right.
You know, absolutely, I can totally relate with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then and people think, you know, oh well, so you know, Mary's beautiful. She has it all together. She's got a cute figure. She's this. She's that. People don't realize what it's like to have to live up to those expectations of other people.
Right.
You know, do you feel that way?
Yeah, and I think also when I've done counseling, I've worked with women, and you even when you see them, you're like, but you hear the pain inside.
Yes.
And it doesn't match.
Exactly.
You know?
Everyone think, and that's why we shouldn't judge each other, because
Right.
in our society we're so prone to that, to judging each
Yeah.
other and saying, "Oh, so and so has it all together. What do they know? They've never suffered." You don't
Right.
realize what people go through,
Right.
you know, and why they may look like they're perfect.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah, so it was actually, I think the support group was really good because all these women who had the same kind of thinking and same behaviors, to all trying to get help
Yeah.
and help each other, that, you know, you're worth it, you're beautiful, you don't have to do these destructive things. And I was, like I said, I was scared out of the damage it would done to my body. And, you know, later I did pay for some health consequences, but that was also part of the healing process, because that's what happens when you,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, do those type things.
Yeah, your body does
So
pay for it in some ways.
it's hard on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did your family rally? So your family's kind of, did they do an intervention with you, or did they
Kind
just really
of.
encouraged you?
Yeah, they did. They always were very supportive, very helpful. Even my brother and sister. So yeah, and again, it was very hard for me to talk to my dad, because my dad was a pastor, and to be honest with him. But every time he reminded me that was all in my thinking, that no, I didn't need. He still loved me, and it was okay, and
Wow.
I didn't need his approval.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that was what my little world that I created. So that was very liberating, that, you know, that he continued to remind me that.
Well, it reminds me of the
So-
scripture, I can't remember, I think it's 2 Corinthians 12 or something, that says that he is sufficient for us, and in our weakness he is strong. And
Yeah.
yet we distort that, because here you are trying to be so strong and so perfect, yet Jesus wants us to be weak and to allow us to be strengthened by him.
Right, right.
You know?
Just to lean into him.
Yeah.
And just sometimes, I mean, I remember times when I was at the treatment center, I was just, it was very hard, very painful sometimes, but I kept my Bible nearby, and I just take the next indicated right step and did what they asked, and it worked. I mean, but it's painful. It's not always easy.
No.
And sometimes it's moment by moment.
Yeah, yeah,
You
for
know?
sure, absolutely.
So-
So you went into counseling, and at this point, would you say you were full-fledged in your eating disorder, or did it get worse even after? Or did you start to get better progressively, or did you have stops and starts in your recovery?
I think there was, I would say progressively get better, and this is why, because it first started with anorexia, and then went to bulimia, and then the binge eating disorder. So I guess you could say I wanted to get better, and I was doing what I could, but there was some ways that I guess you could say I was still acting out in different ways, if that makes sense. I wanted to get better. I was searching, but I was still holding on, and I wasn't completely letting go and completely surrendered to what God had. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what was the next step then?
It was, again, like I was telling you, when I was at Starbucks one morning, and I realized that I think part of it was all this stuff I felt I had to be, I just didn't need to do it anymore. And I got really honest with God. I got honest with my boyfriend, my family, where I was working. I was helping women at the time. And I think that's when I would see what they would go through too, I was like, I felt like I was seeing the healing they were experiencing, and I was like, I believe God wants more healing for me too, you know? And I just got honest. I mean, I guess that distorted thinking just like was lifted.
Yeah.
Like I feel it was really just lifted one morning, and even before I went to the treatment center, I was already free. I feel like I was already, and that was just the treatment process, I think, was just the facilitation of the healing.
Yes.
This was the how-to.
Amen.
Yeah, this is
Amen.
how God was saying, okay, this is how we're going to do it.
Yeah, and I identify with that too, because I've been in Celebrate Recovery for a couple of years, but I've been healed from my disorder for about 5 years. And so when I was invited to come to Celebrate Recovery, I'm like, well, why do I need that? I'm already healed.
Yeah.
I'm good. God's delivered me. I have no thoughts, none of that. But but then I did go to a meeting just to satisfy a friend that wanted me to go.
Yeah.
And when I got to the meeting, I identified with every single woman in the group, and I just broke down crying, and I realized, oh my gosh, I'm a train wreck. So, you know, and what I realized is that although I had been healed by God, He wanted me to learn how to walk in that healing. He wanted me to learn how to He wanted me to have those coping skills, knowing that, like you said, our thoughts can still get us in trouble, our memories and all those things, and we have to learn how to apply the tools of recovery, So there's healing, but then there's walking healing. Don't you think?
Yeah, well, because it's one day at a time, and life happens still, so we have to learn how to deal with it.
Exactly.
And sometimes it's like harder than we think, and so we want to be able to be strong, be a good foundation to be able to deal with that in a healthy way and not go back to old behaviors.
Exactly. So God started opening doors for you to help other women. How did that happen?
So, like I said, at the time I was working with substance abuse, and after I had my treatment process, or my went to the treatment, I did get to go back to my job, and I think I was able to better help the women there because I had been on the other side. Of course, it was a different issue, but it still was the same kind of thing. So I kept on doing that, and I kept on my my recovery journey, and then my husband and I recently moved to Northern California, and I got an opportunity to do private practice counseling because I really like one-on-one. I think that's where I always do best, so I got to start practicing there, and then just through some networking events, I met a woman and was able to share an office with her and go on my own, and it was very exciting because I believe that the Lord kind of wanted me to do that and to be able to provide this piece with my substance abuse counseling, with the eating disorder piece, because it's very needed, and seeing, working in the field and working at a residential treatment for 6 years and having my own journey and seeing both hand in hand, being able to bring that into, helping women. So.
Can you describe what the treatment is like briefly? What's it like to go through treatment? What do they do? What kinds of things do they do in treatment to help women or people?
Now, would you say with the place I worked or the place I went to?
No, the place you went to.
Oh, well, I think there specifically because it was eating disorders primarily, they kind of give you a meal plan, like you meet with a nutritionist. I think that's, especially someone who has destructive eating for so long, I think that's important because sometimes you forget how to eat and what's normal. So that really helped. That was a huge piece.
Yes.
They did do 12-step groups. They did some, recovery type meetings, therapy
Support
groups. They did some challenges, because it isn't all about the food. It's also about the inner side. That's a lot of it. And just working through, being true to who you are, who God created you to be, what your likes are, what your dislikes are, being assertive when to, say no, in certain situations, realizing what's healthy. They gave us a lot of tools for that and learning how to do that. Also, some challenges is always hiding behind us, like everything's great. Like, I had a challenge, and it was like a no smile challenge, and I'm very smiley, so I remember when I would do that, my peers were just like, they thought I looked so depressed because I was not smiling, but it was also really got me in touch with who I was. And we had some days too where we just had to wear like sweats and no makeup and a hair in a bun, but it helped us get the focus off the outside and work on like the heart, and I'm so grateful for that.
That's awesome. Wow. Yeah. That's a great experience. And do you guys have kids?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, I have a daughter. She's 12. We have 3 kids, but my daughter's 12, and it's just the media and the world that we are in just bombards women and people, because I know men can have eating disorders too. In fact, that's increasing. But the world bombards us with the perfect images, and that you always have to look perfect, and to be accepted, you should be a size 2, and whatever it is, the messages that just to be able to, I think anyone would benefit almost going through a process of therapy like that. You know, I think we can all get caught up to a degree.
It's definitely an opportunity of a lifetime. I mean, I really thought it was. You know?
Sounds like it was really beneficial for you.
Yeah.
So is that where you finally got your deliverance?
Yeah. I mean, I think, like I said, I think it was the week before when I had that moment of clarity at Starbucks. But I think that's, again, where God showed me how. That was the how-to, how to live in the freedom that he was giving me.
Awesome. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back in 3 minutes. Stay tuned.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.
And I'm interviewing Mary Patton today, and Mary's been sharing her testimony about overcoming an eating disorder. And I love it because, you know, Jesus says, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart because I have overcome the world. And so I love that, because through our relationship with Christ, we can be overcomers. We don't have to live in that prison. We were talking about off camera, the prison of our own making many times, you know. And so you were sharing before we went to break about, you know, how God's beginning to use your struggles. And I was going to ask you, what have you learned in your struggles? What have you learned about yourself and about God?
Well, first, the verse that always comes to mind is Psalm 139. And it was interesting because when I was young, I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, and I know that full well.
Yes.
And it was always something that I had to kind of remember, and I hold on to. But I think not only did I grow closer to the Lord, and I think more real relationship with Him, I think that I can, you know, help and share stories, share with other women today. So that's another way He's used it. Just for the past couple of years, I mean, I think when I got delivered from the bulimia, started there, and then as I continued, you know, to experience the full healing, you know, just the way that He can work in our lives, and the way that He is a huge part of recovery process, whatever the addiction is, whatever the struggle is. And even in relapse, when I've talked to clients with relapse, I always encourage them, as hard as it is, or if something happens, know that God is always going to be there for you, and He will be there to pick you up, and you can go to Him, and He's the only thing that is constant. He will never leave you. He will never forsake you. And so I always want to get that in, because sometimes relapse is part of the recovery process. And in some ways it kind of was mine, in the sense that I wasn't totally free the way I felt that God wanted me to be. So there was things I still need to work on and deal with. And so I always need Him, and He's a constant, and He's there, you know. And then you experience freedom, but we have life challenges. But He's still there to be there with us and to carry us through. And when I trust Him and I let go, it's really cool to see Him just show you through, that there's always that light at the end of the tunnel.
And, you know, hindsight's always 20/20. You can look, sometimes in the moment you're like, okay, God, where are you? But then you look back and you're like, wow, look what He's gotten me through. Because He may not always change our circumstances. In fact, that's the thing I wanted to share about too, and talk to you about is, you know, I work with I work with someone who struggles with anorexia. She's getting better, and it's so awesome to see what God's doing in her life. But, you know, in working with her, I have felt guilty that, you know, how come I got the miracle? You know, how come I got the instant, like literally, I'm not kidding. It's like He just took it from me. Like, no more thoughts, no more, it's I can't even relate to the fact that I had it for so long. I am a new creation, literally. But that doesn't always happen for everybody. And you know, what do you say to someone who is still just, even though they're in relationship with God, they're still, you know, they feel like they're surrendered, but they're not getting that recovery? What do you say to people?
Well, I think in that place, it's just meeting them where they're at, you know, because again, I was there one day. So I think for me, I try to remember back where they're at, and I try to just to speak to that and kind of empathize with their pain. You know, and again, encourage them to keep going, that it is possible. You know, but it is, like, it's difficult when you do see someone in it still, and they're not maybe getting it. But the Lord was so patient with me for so long, so I have to remember, you know, it's in His timing and His way. and he's used us to help guide and facilitate the process, but it's ultimately him and their personal encounter with him that's going to bring the healing and the decision that they make.
Exactly.
And
that we each have our own journey, and he allows things, he doesn't make us have eating disorders. He allows us to, and knowing that he's going to use that also for ministry purposes, like he's using in you. I mean, you had the struggle. What better of a person to help women now than someone who's been through it? You can identify with them and be that hope.
Yeah, and I think that's the important part of it too. Is I know even 2 ways through it, I wanted to talk to women that had freedom and recovery. How did you get it? What do you do? How is it? I mean, I was so attracted to that because I wanted that. So we need women that have experienced of freedom to be able to share that. With the women who are there.
And that makes us so much more passionate for Jesus. I know you're passionate for him, and so am I. It's like, people, you just got to know him. He is the miracle worker. He will heal you. He's amazing, And so, it's and when we can share that genuine experience, people go, wow, I want that. I want that.
And I think the last thing is just don't give up. Just keep going. Just tomorrow's a new day. Just try it. Get back up, try again.
I love what you said about he will never leave us or forsake us, and he pursues us relentlessly.
Yeah,
absolutely. So anyway, it is amazing. So you're when you now that you're working with drugs and alcohol, but you're also working with codependency and bulimia, or eating disorders, I should say. So how do you do how do you define codependency? It's always a hard one to define, and usually they're all wrapped in together, aren't they? Codependency is kind of like the thread that goes through all those.
Right. Codependency is like what's underneath the eating disorder or substance abuse. Like drinking, I'm frustrated at them, so I'm gonna go have a bottle of beer. Because they're making me so mad. The eating disorder is like they don't love me, so I'm just gonna like hurt myself. So that's definitely the underlying issue, and it's definitely, I feel, what is kind of brought up once you remove the substances is the codependency, and it's an ongoing process. Learning to have healthy relationships, because when we're in our addiction, we don't have a healthy relationship with ourselves, so we have to learn to do that with us, and then let alone with other people, and it's kind of learning how to do that all over again.
Yes, absolutely.
And so codependency, I guess, define, I would just say it's just, I think we're all codependent in one way or another. There's
degrees of it.
Right. We don't want to be too dependent on others, and we don't want to be too independent, but we want to have that balance in between, and dependence on the Lord.
I want to be codependent with God only. Exactly. So I think that, I totally, I hear what you're saying, and I think too, when people have asked me, well, what is codependency? And I'll say, if you get your self-worth out of other people, that's a huge sign that you're codependent. Right. If your self-worth is based on someone else, then that shows that you're codependent with them.
And
don't you think?
Right. And this is where the recovery is.
Yeah.
If they don't like me and they don't approve of me, I don't have to hurt myself.
Yeah.
I can still take care of myself, and that's recovery.
Yeah. That's their issue, not mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I'm sure you can relate to this.
Yeah.
I've owned so many people's issues in my life.
Oh,
I've taken on so many other people's stuff, and desperately tried to fix people and please people, and if they don't, and then, oh my gosh, the worry in your mind that consume you, like, what are they thinking about me, and I said this wrong and now they don't like me, or just that, oh my gosh, it's prison to live like that. Aren't you just so grateful to be I'm not saying every day is perfect,
right?
We can still fall back a little bit, but we have the Lord to pull us along and say, nope, you're not going to go back there,
right? And I would always say too, I wouldn't say I'm a dishonest person, but when it comes to saying how I feel, that's something I can be dishonest about, and I have to think about and be mindful about. Am I saying this because that's what I think they want to hear, or am I saying this because this is really what's going on? And so I think that's really the process, the healing part of the healing process is recognizing that and being honest with yourself about what's going on, and
absolutely
being okay when things don't go the way you would like them to go.
I'm okay to not be okay.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that.
Yeah, good. So how do you, I think we talked about this a little bit. What's the main thing you've learned about God through this?
Yeah. I think a lot of I always thought I would meet some guy someday who would sweep me off my feet.
Yeah.
And really, the Lord is the only. I mean, I have a wonderful husband, but
Yes.
the only man who's going to sweep me off my feet is the Lord.
Yes. Amen.
And I remember in my struggle, I never felt enough for relationships, and part of it too, I had this barrier, but the Lord is my knight in shining armor.
Yes,
I mean, He
yes.
really is. He's there in everything, and when I bring that to Him, relationships are a lot better. You know, as my relationship grows with Him and my dependency on Him, relationships are better. You know, things work out. You know, it just all works out better.
Yeah.
So I guess that would be one of the biggest things I've learned, and to have my hope in Him and not in people.
Yes.
I put a lot of expectations on people, on myself, and I just have to continue to let them go, because like we were talking about earlier, people are going to disappoint.
Yes.
But God doesn't. And maybe it doesn't always work out the way we want, but He's still there. And and He still has a hope, and He still has good. Romans 8:28. He works all things out for His good.
That's my life verse, girl.
Oh, that's
Oh my
cool.
gosh, I love it. I mean, there's
Yeah.
so many great verses in the Bible, but that one to me sums up everything.
Yeah.
And I have to say that to myself sometimes, many times a day. That
Yeah.
all things work together for good for those who love God and are called according to His purpose. And it's truth, and that gets you through.
Right.
That hope and that promise, it gets you through.
Right.
Exactly. And keeping our eyes on Him, because the world is so full of, like I said earlier, chaos and ups and downs and disappointments, especially when it involves our expectations. Our expectations can get us in trouble. There's so many challenges that we have to face, but if we, and that what we focus on gets bigger, when we're focusing on the stormy sea, it's going to seem overwhelming.
Right.
When we focus on Jesus and keep our eye on that and have that perspective, we can get through that storm.
Right.
So that's awesome. So what are you, how is He using you now? I know that where do you think your next step is? I know He's using you as a counselor. Where do you see that going?
Well, I did recently start a group. I really wanted to provide a group, especially in the Northern California area, is just for women to be able to see their beauty and be free from the destructive things that hold them down. I just want to have a safe place and support for healing, for women just to thrive,
Yes,
just to kind of be transformed, and I'm just hoping as this, practice starts and opens, that women will experience that transformation.
Good. Awesome. That's a perfect place to take a break. And we'll be right back. Stay tuned.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.
Faith, and this is the final segment, and I always say it just goes so quickly. It goes too quickly, because I've enjoyed having you, and we could talk all day, I'm sure.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so tell us about before we went to break, you were sharing about your new group. Tell us more about that.
So, so again, it kind of is based off of, again, like I said, I wanted to see women experience transformation and really experience transformation, and just kind of discover their gifts and their talents. And I had a good friend that I've actually worked with when I was in Orange County, and she's also she would be okay with me telling this because she's written it in her book, but she's also recovered from an eating disorder, and she started this nonprofit called Rewrite Beautiful.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, and so
I actually have some information here.
Yeah, we're using her curriculum to kind of go through. She just wrote a beautiful curriculum, just for women to kind of go through that process to discover what makes them beautiful, and the mistakes that they made in the past doesn't have to define them anymore, and they can move forward to a bright future. And I also want to, so we'll be going through that, but we'll also just have some discussion. I'm going to have some special guests come. I'd like some people to come and share their story.
Yeah.
We have some exciting things going to happen. It's going to be just a safe, supportive environment for them to come. And
Awesome. How can someone find out more about this? Let me see if it's on here.
Yeah,
Let's see. I'm looking. Well, is this your phone number? 530-270. Okay.
Yeah.
So someone could call you at 530-270-9294. And what's the website here? Let's see. Is there a website on here?
Well, you can email me.
Okay.
At marylisapatton@gmail.com. My website is on Talent Earth. So if you
Okay.
go to talentearth.com and you find group facilitator,
Yeah.
it should come up, the
Okay.
group.
Okay.
And like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to call me or email me about
good.
it.
Good.
Yeah.
And I'm also passionate about that. Jesus is not a halfway God. He's
Yeah.
a full-on transforming God.
Right.
And the fullness, we can live in fullness of him that will blow our minds. That is more than we could ever ask or imagine. And I'm also passionate about, we don't have to just live halfway lives. We can
Right.
live lives transformed, like you're talking about. That is possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amen. I'm so glad you're doing
Well,
that.
and that's so true too, because I remember even along the journey that my first therapist that I went to, he always said, you will overcome, and it stuck in my mind even when I felt I was halfway there.
Yes.
Like I'd overcome this part and this part of it, that you will be completely, and so
Yes.
it is true, and I
Yeah.
held on to that as difficult as it was, but I think that gave me hope to just
And that faith.
going.
I mean, the Lord
Yeah.
says that if we have faith the size of a mustard seed, he can move mountains with that. So,
Oh, yes.
Amen. Yeah. So he's done that in your life.
Yeah.
Because of your faith. It's by your faith that you're saved, right?
Uh-huh.
So
Right.
that's awesome. So give us some tools today. If people are watching right now that struggle, what are
Yeah.
some coping skills that people can apply when they're trying to overcome an eating disorder?
Okay. Well, again, it's so hard to see when you're in that prison to know that the thinking isn't real. But it takes time to realize that. I mean, like I was telling her before, being in it, it's hard to see when you're other side. So if you're in that right now, obviously reaching out for help is always the first step. Even if you don't know how, or if you can even follow through, the fact that you reach out and you're honest with someone, that's where it starts. As far as eating disorders, group support.
And why does a group help? What is the magic in a group?
It's just so powerful because you're with people who you think when you're in it, I'm crazy.
Yes.
I'm just doing these crazy things. And when you're a support group, you realize everyone else is just like you.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you also get to hear some who've been where you're at and want to experience, the recovery.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you get to see, it gives you hope. So when you go to that group, you kind of get refueled to go on another day.
Yes,
And
amen.
to kind of conquer it.
Amen.
And you also realize, I think that was part of what changed the stinking thinking
Yeah.
was that, okay, this isn't real. There is hope. I can keep going. So I think the honesty starts, even if you're not right where you want to be at, you surround yourself with the support,
Yeah.
with counsel. Reading scripture is really
Yes.
very healing.
Very. Are you faith-based?
We aren't.
Okay.
So in that, I just, you want to meet the person where they're at, and I just always encourage them, what do they want? What do they really want in life? And why aren't you giving yourself the opportunity to take it? And what are you afraid of?
Yeah.
So it's addressing the fear.
Yeah,
What are
that's
you
huge.
afraid of? A lot of with eating disorders is we reject ourselves so much. So
Yes.
we want to start with not rejecting ourselves
Yeah.
and to embrace that.
Yeah.
And voice what we really want and what's stopping it and what's the barrier in between. So it's identifying those. I think with eating disorders a lot is getting on a meal plan or seeing a nutritionist. I think a lot of times that's a big part of the recovery process, just kind of like an alcoholic, no drinking.
Yeah.
Well, you can't not eat. You have
Right.
to eat. And sometimes you have to relearn how to do it. So working with the nutritionist
It's
is
huge.
a big part of it.
That's so huge.
Yeah.
Because seriously, Mary, okay, I didn't eat cheese or avocados for who knows how many years.
Sure.
And when I did eat them, I would go purge because those were forbidden. Those were off limits.
Right.
Those were breaking the rules. You will not eat those because those have fat in them. I did not allow myself to eat normally. The other day, it was this summer, I took my, at the time he was 9, my son, to a breakfast date, to Sam and I. And I ordered the everything omelet, and it had avocados and chili and sour cream and cheese, and and I'm just enjoying it. We're laughing, having a great time. All of a sudden, I had this flood of memory. Oh my gosh! Look at my life. It's normal.
Yeah.
I don't even take a second. I'm eating and I'm enjoying it. I'm not even thinking
Right.
about it. Whereas before, I would have been so I guess what it was, Mary, is I realized I was able to be present in my own life. Whereas before, when I had the eating disorder, I would constantly be consumed with what I had eaten in the past, or what people were thinking of me now, or what I was going to eat tomorrow, or not allow myself to eat tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? So I was never living in the present. I was always living in the past or in the future. And so, like, when you just said that about the eating plan, I eat normally now. And I didn't know how to do that for so many years.
Right.
You
and
know?
I understand.
Yeah.
And even if they want to get help with a nutritionist, it's always good to go to a nutritionist who knows about eating disorders.
Yes.
So if anyone needs any help, they can call me and I can refer them to someone.
Yeah.
Because it's important that you're able to identify the fear around it. I heard also another speaker, Dr. Anita Johnson, speak a couple months ago, and kind of she talked about, she does a lot of storytelling with her therapy. She talked about when we binge on something, what are we really looking for?
Yes.
Are
What's
we
the
trying
trigger?
Yeah. We're going there for comfort.
Yeah.
Or we're going there to find delight or restoration. That's maybe be something that's missing in our life. So if we're going to food for comfort, we're missing comfort. And so we need to find different ways to comfort ourselves beside the food. So that's something we work on in therapy. What are ways we can comfort ourselves? Maybe get a massage, or take a bath, or talk to a friend. So other healthy ways.
Read the Bible, whatever it is that your thing is, Good.
Definitely.
Good. Well, what do you think it's wise for someone who has an eating disorder to be vegetarian or vegan or any of those things? If you're trying to recover from a disorder, do you think do you think it's wise to have those kind of rules, or do you think you should not have those kinds of rules, because you need to eat, you need to learn how to eat healthfully?
Right. Well, what I try to do with that is, because I don't want to, it's very hard for the person with the eating disorder, I don't want to judge them and where they're at. I want to meet them where they're at.
Yeah.
So I kind of ask them, what's your motivation for that? And is that how you want to live your life?
Yeah.
And can you live an abundant life with that? So I kind of make it, up to them as far as, because I know that, I had a friend, even when I was in the treatment center, she was a vegetarian, and they did make her meal plan around her being a vegetarian, and she was able to eat freely.
Good.
And there was reasons. So it's kind of like, what is your motivation behind that? Are you doing
that? Is it control, or is it
or do you really have this passion for animals that you really so it's helping them identifying that, and then seeing, okay, can we make progress here? And if not, maybe let's relook at that again, because maybe this is not the best.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, I didn't want to be into bondage even to that. I wanted to be free to go wherever.
Yes. Not have those. And don't you think that so much, I know for myself, and I believe this is true for most people with an eating disorder, it's largely about control.
Right.
Isn't it?
Right.
And so, and learning, and because I know I still can lapse into control issues.
Right.
So sometimes it's a minute by minute giving it to God. But so much of it's control. So that's why I was asking that question. If you have, if you're exercising that kind of control over your diet, is that healthy?
Yeah.
But I guess, like you said, you have to meet them where they are.
Right.
Yeah.
And to see what's your motivation behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hard to let go of control, though. How do you let go? How did you learn to let go?
Geez,
or how do you counsel people to let go?
I think it's a daily surrender, one day at a time.
Yeah.
A lot of it, I think, sometimes is learning to express your needs and wants, and then letting go of the results.
Yes, good.
And, I sometimes have been pushy, so if I want to hear from someone, I may call once and then call again, and then after that, you have to let it go. And if they call back, it was meant to be, and if not, then that's maybe not what was best, or that conversation wasn't supposed to happen. So it's definitely, one day at a time. I think it manifests in all areas of our lives. And so, it's just letting go of the results and the fear. And a lot of times it's okay.
Yeah.
Everything works out just fine.
Yeah. And the outcome is in, getting back to the spiritual side, the outcome is in God's hands. Yeah. And I really want to encourage the viewers. Many of you know that I'm the ministry leader for our Celebrate Recovery here in Amador County at the Church of the Nazarene. And it's the best church, although our community has some amazing churches. We're really blessed here. But anyway, Celebrate Recovery, we have ours on Friday nights at 6:15. So if you if you can relate to anything we've talked about today, I encourage you to come and check out Celebrate Recovery, because like what you said, it is a group, not group therapy, but a group setting where people share, and the men and women are separated, so you don't have to worry about what men are thinking. It's, the women are together and the men are together, and it's 12-step, but it's Christ-centered 12 steps. So it's all the scripture that goes along with it, and in my mind, it's the best kind of recovery program because it's Christ-centered.
Right.
And not only are you getting healing, but you're also strengthening and deepening your relationship with God. Don't you agree that it's pretty incredible? Yeah.
I mean, the process, because I meet a whole different group of people, but I really like the 12-step process, and I think it's a really good way to facilitate healing. And it's really helped a lot of people.
Yeah. Are you involved? Are you a leader in Celebrate Recovery?
Yes, I'm involved in the Celebrate Recovery in Natomas.
Natomas, Real Life Church.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I do some service as far as like helping out with the groups and stuff, but I'm still, have a sponsor and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I have my own.
You're in recovery because we're always, and I would say we're in recovery, I think forever. I mean, not forever, but while we're on this life, because we're always, there's so much bombardment of negativity and things we have to deal with. And so we have to recover from that and get closer to God,
Yeah.
It's all about, like we said in the beginning, it's all about that intimacy with Him. That's the key to freedom.
Right.
Yeah. So we're actually out of time. So you've been an awesome guest today. Thank you so much, Mary.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful.
And I'm going to share your phone number one more time. It's 530-270-9294 if you'd like to get in touch with Mary and learn more about her group, How to Rewrite Beautiful, right? Okay, good. Okay, well, we're going to see you. Actually, we're going on a break for a few weeks, maybe about 6 weeks. So we'll see you in December. And I hope you have a blessed day, and we'll see you soon.
You're watching Amador County's local television network, TSPN.